Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Visionary Leaders Podcast. My name is Aisha Harley, and I'm one of the founders, and we are thrilled to have you here with us today. Please join us every Monday at 10 a.m. Pacific Time as we explore all things wellness, essential oils, and doTERRA. If you miss an episode, catch up anytime on YouTube, Apple Podcast, or Spotify. And stay connected by signing up for our newsletter and text reminders at hellovisionary.life. Today, we have a very special guest, Dr. Nicole Stevens, Vice President of Clinical Research at doTERRA. Dr. Stevens will share the latest findings from doTERRA's science team, highlighting how essential oils paired with high-quality supplementation create a truly unique and effective wellness strategy that sets us apart in the natural health industry. Dr. Stevens' primary research involves around essential oil biochemistry related to human application, among other topics actively being pursued by the clinical research team. Her research has provided novel evidence of essential oil metabolic and epigenetic mechanisms. Dr. Stevens has accomplished so much at doTERRA, and her hard-earned credentials. Not only does she hold 2 master's degrees and a PhD in both biochemistry and molecular biology, but she also holds a number of other prestigious certifications in related scientific and medical fields. One of the things we love about listening to Dr. Stevens is that she is an excellent teacher and can pare down research findings to the key things we need to know. I know you'll love this discussion with her on the latest in doTERRA's research. So, Dr. Stevens, thank you so much for being here. And Marty, I'm going to hand the call over to you.
Sounds great. Thanks, Aisha. I appreciate it. And thanks everybody for joining us today. Dr. Stevens, we are so excited to have you here. And this is a really special kind of a call for us to get our 2 different teams together from all over the country. We've got people from Canada. We've got people from the East Coast all the way out in the West Coast. And so we're a group that's very eager to hear from you today. And we've got a lot of questions. So is it okay if I just jump in with some of them?
Please do. Super excited to be here as well. And actually the reason that I jumped on a little bit late is because today we are opening our most recent clinical trial that's going to be presented at convention. So we're excited about that.
Yay, that's exciting, exciting. Well, you have a number of things that you've been working on at doTERRA and for so many years. And as Vice President of the clinical research and the science group, how many people do you have in your team and about how many projects are you typically working on? Just to give us some context here.
Okay, so currently on our team, we are a team of 6 of us. So there's me, underneath me is a director, and then we have 2 clinical research coordinators who are the ones who are kind of boots on the ground. And we have a medical writer and a technical writer. There's so much paperwork that's involved in clinical research. And we also have some volunteers from other departments who come and help us with some of the logistics when we're running our trials, because there's a lot to do back end, making sure that all the T's are crossed and all the forms are filled out and all the samples are processed. So, yeah.
That's great. Well, there's so much behind it, and we get to hear the finished product. But today, when we're talking, I'm hoping to have you share with us a little bit about some of your experiences, maybe some of the unique stories and things. And one of them, for instance, was that at the leadership retreat, there was a quote that I think you or Dr. Riggs said about research allows us to dose correctly, to use essential oils safely, to evaluate efficacy and reproduce benefits or something like that.
Yeah.
And so kind of thinking about like science 101, one of the questions that we had was, when you're doing a research study, are you trying to answer like one of those questions, like the safety question, or is it a couple of them combined? And can you kind of give us an example of how you would either combine them or answer them separately?
Definitely. And I would say almost without exception, we're answering more than one question at a time when we do a study. We always include a safety element. We want to understand is this, as it's being taken internally, what doses are safe, under what circumstances, whether it's the topical, aromatic, or internal, we're looking at markers that the body can tell us, oh, I'm fine with this, or this might be a little too high of a dose or too often of a dose, things like that. So there's a couple of different types of studies that we do. We have, you guys have probably heard us talk about pharmacokinetic studies. That's one of my favorite because it is one of the first and most important looks at how the body responds through how the essential oil is absorbed into your system, like how quickly that happens, how much is absorbed, and then how it's distributed throughout your body, how long that takes, how it's metabolized. Your body will change it and, add little groups to it to make it more soluble and make it be able to move throughout your body throughout the blood supply, and then how it's eliminated. And that is kind of, so those things, we actually call it ADME, absorption, distribution, metabolism, elimination. That's kind of the heart of the pharmacokinetic study. So we look at that, and that is where we start to get an idea about dosing. We see this beautiful curve of when your body absorbs it, it peaks up, and then you'll slowly eliminate it over time. That amount of time tells us, okay, if we dose again here, we'll actually be able to maintain this therapeutic level in our blood. And as we're doing that, we're also looking at markers of safety. And those usually are liver markers. You're processing a lot of what we call the xenobiotics, or the external chemicals. We're processing those in our liver, and we're usually filtering them through our kidneys on the way out. We tend to eliminate most of our essential oil constituents through the urine when they're taken internally. So we kind of look at those two watchdogs and say, how's the body responding to this dose of essential oil? And we haven't yet come across where someone was, really, their body was not responding well in terms of their liver function or their kidney function to an essential oil, which is actually really encouraging. And we sometimes will do what we call a dose finding study, where we start with a small dose, we kind of go up in doses, and we've gotten to some pretty high doses of essential oil, and the body, I don't know, it just kind of knows what to do with it. We haven't run into any trouble yet, so knock on wood, but so yes, to answer your original question, we're typically looking at safety, and we're looking at how the body handles it, and we're looking at the efficacy of it. What are the benefits that we're seeing in the body? And these are things like we talked about convention, frankincense, for example. We were seeing improvements in blood markers, things like inflammation. When we looked at the omega, we were looking at improvements in blood pressure and in heart rate. So those are what we call efficacy markers, showing that it's doing what we hope it will do, why we're taking it in the first place.
That's great. Well, when you're creating different types of research, are you working on this as for all of us as doTERRA users, as our primary audience? Is this for medical practitioners? Is it like for the government to approve some, well, I guess the old government, I don't know what they call it now. But anyway, who benefits most from the investment of what's going into the research, the work that you all are doing?
We are typically designing our studies with you guys in mind. We're thinking about our essential oil, our wellness advocates, our users. We want the education, we want the outcomes to be something that's applicable to you, that's important to anyone who'd want to take this and use it, primarily. So when we're doing that, we're typically looking at the demographics of people who would use this. When we were looking at adaptive, for example, we knew that this would be something that even children might benefit from. So we included children in that clinical trial. When we're looking at the things like omegas, that typically, you're middle-aged, you're a little bit older. Kids, I mean, it's good for kids to have that for development too, but we're mostly looking at the benefits that you're going to get as you are an adult. So we included adults mostly in our studies. That being said, although we designed the studies kind of with our users, our end users in mind, I really think that one of the keys of these studies is going to be when we have the data to show to these medical practitioners and help them understand the potential that there is for therapeutics. So that when someone comes into their office and says, hey, I want to use this natural product, they can say, oh, there's actually some data on this. So I'm comfortable now as a practitioner being able to use this as part of my practice. So I don't know, I think that there is kind of both sides of that coin. And we're so excited to be contributing to that space because
Right.
even though essential oils are much more popular and in a lot of ways more mainstream than they used to be, there's still so little data compared to what you might find on, the pharmaceutical side. And it's so cool to just be able to find these things that no one's ever looked at before. Like no one's ever done an internal study on copaiba, ever. We did the very first one in the whole history of the world, and we're so excited about that. That's going to be one of our upcoming presentations and publications was about the study that we did on copaiba because it's really cool. Frankincense, same thing. Internal studies just don't exist. So we are, I can say pretty unequivocally that we are the leader in these kinds of studies, and it's so exciting to be part of that.
That's great. Well, and so that kind of leads me to my next question. How do you decide what oils or products you're going to study? I mean, do people send you ideas, or do you like have a group discussion about it? How do you decide what you're going to focus on?
Yes, we actually have a couple of committees, believe it or
Hmm.
not, on what are the priorities to study? Because honestly, we have lifetimes of work
Yeah.
that we can do. I would love, I've got actually one of my daughters just got a job here at doTERRA, and I'm like, okay, good. You can carry on the legacy and keep testing all these things for me because we really do have an enormous amount of work to do and that we're excited to do. But we have a committee that takes a look and says, okay, priority wise, where should we be putting our energy right now and next year and the year after that? And so we typically divide our research ideas into kind of two buckets. One of them is we want to continue to get some really good validation, substantiation on our legacy products. And this is kind of, the study with Serenity, the study with Adaptive, looking at Copaiba all by itself. We want to be able to have publications like this that don't exist yet, but that now we can point to them and say, here's the efficacy, here's the safety. If you're a practitioner, here's how you can use it. Then the other side is we have new products coming out all the time. So we typically want to be able to launch a new product with some substantiation. And sometimes that's not a full clinical trial because these can take years to do. Sometimes it's a pilot that shows proof of concept and then leads us down towards a full clinical trial. And that's kind of the space we were on with our frankincense, where we had some data, but the trial was still ongoing. So there's those two parallel paths. And we typically have at least one or two in each of those buckets running at any time of the year. So it keeps us very busy.
Wow, it sounds like it. I can't believe you only have 6 people on your team.
I
That's
know.
amazing.
It's quite a team. They're very
Good thing it's your daughter. Don't forget to let her go home at night.
I know. Keep working.
Anyway. Okay, so let's hear a little bit of a story. There's a lot of different things that I remember hearing you telling us a story about something that got lost in FedEx, but what has been one of the most difficult, that sounded horrible, by the way, but one of the most difficult doTERRA products that you've ever had to research? Like, can you tell us a little bit about that? Like, what was so far? And you've been involved for quite a while, like what, 15 years or more, something like that?
Yeah.
What is one of the hardest products to do research on for you?
Well, yes, going back to what you said, the hardest project we've ever done was that frankincense study, because we got our entire study done, and then FedEx lost the blood samples on their way to the blood lab. I cannot even tell you the depth of sorrow that that gave me because my team had bent over backwards and all the people that came to our trial had been so excited and literally given part of their body for us to do research on and it got lost. Those are the moments when you have to remind yourself what this is all about and how important it really is. We redid the whole trial, months of work, and we will never again send all of our blood samples at once through the mail. I actually delivered them in person to the lab to make sure they got there the second time, and they did. So we have some really cool data to show for it. I think the hardest product we've ever done research on was the adaptive essential oil.
Mm.
Because think about this, right? The best kind of trial to do is a double-blind study where the researchers don't know what's being researched and the people don't know what's being researched. How do you do that when you can smell it? You
Right,
smell what's happening and you know whether you're smelling something or you're not smelling something.
right.
So we came up with an idea on that project to where we were going to um, ask people, okay, are you allergic to any of these oils? No, 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 no. And so we let them into the study. We didn't really tell them that they were going to either be smelling something or not smelling something. It's doTERRA. I mean, diffusers are running all day, every day, all the time, everywhere. So what we did is we had them take a cognitive test in a room that had just water diffusing or that had adaptive diffusing. And we didn't draw their attention to it and say, okay, you're in a room where this is diffusing. We just let them take their test. And then we compared, okay, are you less stressed in the room where adaptive was diffusing or where nothing, or just water was diffusing? And at the end, we had some people say, ooh, whatever you were running in the diffuser smelled really good. Like, yeah, that's part of the test. You didn't even know it yet. Um, and I actually did a presentation at one of our trade shows about how do you blind a study that can't be blinded, right? This was actually kind of a cool presentation to do because no one had really thought about that before in the research of the essential oil world. How do you blind something that you can smell? So
Mhm.
it ended up being a really cool study. We did find that people in the room where adaptive was diffusing did better on the test, had less stress during the test, and had a lot of positive feedback about the actual hedonic experience of smelling that essential oil. So we knew we were onto
Well,
something pretty cool.
well, that's that's really interesting. And so, I'm going to talk about now on the supplement world. If we think a little bit about bioavailability and the VMG product and that concept, and wondering if there are other supplements that doTERRA has that might make themselves, might work in the same form, in a powder form instead of a capsule. Is that something that you all have looked at all, or why not
Yes.
would you?
Yes, definitely. And I think kind of going down this pathway started clear back when, kind of even before VMG. It started with PB Restore or even before that. This idea of the microencapsulation of the little gut bugs that were in PB Restore. Thinking, okay, what are some ways that we can better deliver things so that our bodies recognize them and they can be more absorbable? And that kind of snowballed into this idea of what other formats might these things take? Because, nobody loves to take a handful of pills every morning and every night. And we know people get pill fatigue, and I do too. I'd be the first one to admit that. So, um, the idea that we could have delivery that would be better absorbed and not necessarily had to be taken as a pill was really kind of how VMG was born.
Mhm.
And a few other countries, interestingly enough, have had something kind of similar to VMG. I think they called it sticks, like PB sticks, or can't remember even what they called it, but it was a little packet of stuff rather than a pill to swallow, simply because of the regulations of what would be allowed in that country. So we thought, well, let's take that and bring it here too for our people to be able to use. And that's when we started learning about this new technology of the vitamins that were more bioavailable and the matrix in which the yeast could produce these vitamins for us. And um, the technology is really getting awesome. And our team, kudos to them, they try to stay up with all these improvements so that even if we've had a product for 17 years like we had with LLV, it can probably be better with the new technology that we have. So that's
Right.
always the goal.
That's great. Well, there's been, so much research on the different products with VMG and the E omega and the research that was presented. Um, what are a couple of key findings about each of those products that you think people really need to recognize makes them special and different in doTERRA? Maybe looking at like VMG and E omega or PB Restore. Is there anything about those you can share that you think like, okay, this is the key thing you want to remember about this?
Yeah, definitely. I'll share one of the things that was surprising to me, maybe about each of these in turn. For the VMG, we worried a little bit that if someone were to take, kind of the labels of their LV or something off the counter in the grocery store even, and compare it to the label of VMG, they might think, oh, this is a weakling. It doesn't have, 5,000% of my vitamin D and 15,000% of my vitamin A and whatever. And we thought, ooh, just looking at them, people might have a little bit of heartburn. But then we got the results of the test back. And because it's made, 10, 12 times more bioavailable than other vitamins in the past, especially vitamins off the grocery store shelf, which are mostly synthetic and not very bioavailable at all. When we got the results back and we saw that we were, getting all of this absorption for less amount of stuff, it was very impressive to me. And I thought that's really the secret. We don't need to give people mega doses of everything. We just want to give them vitamins that they can better absorb and be more efficient at using. So that's one of the things I love about the VMG. The vitamins, the minerals in, I would say, one of their most bioavailable forms across the board. And then there's all these other wonderful things too, like the greens and the antioxidant support and everything that's just kind of packed into this one little packet that can fill in so many of the nutritional gaps that we have, even if we're eating, a good diet, even if we're eating clean. Our food supply lacks some of these trace vitamins, minerals, things that we really can, we're sort of functioning, but can be optimally functioning if we make sure that those are filled in. So that's one of the things that I loved about the VMG. The research that we got was that the doses, even though they look smaller on paper, are doing us better because we're using them and not just peeing them out like so many other vitamins we might be. About the E omega, this one, I actually was surprised that in such a short amount of time, we did find those improvements in blood pressure and in heart rate. We'd seen other research showing that was a possibility, but usually it takes 3 months or sometimes even longer to show changes in these systems. They're so tightly controlled by our autonomic nervous system. And that we were seeing changes in a very short amount of time, I was really impressed and really excited, because this is something that you guys as wellness advocates, as you're talking to people, you're able to tell them you're likely to see some positive changes in just a few weeks rather than you have to now take this for 6 months before you can see anything. We were really excited about that. For the PB Restore, kind of same song, different verse, right? In microbiome studies in the literature, you typically need 3 to 6 months before you reach some sort of improvement that you can measure that becomes statistically significant. And we were seeing it within 1 month. And we're seeing that people, not only their gut microbiome was reaching healthier levels and coming into balance, but the way that they felt and the way that they were functioning, they could feel that very quickly. And so we saw some statistically significant changes in their perception of improvement, as well as the actual improvement of the gut microbiome.
That's great. And, I think that those are really important points because they're science-based, but I also think that for me as a wellness advocate, I look at it as these are some unique deliverability approaches that doTERRA has. If you look at each one, the VMG is in a powdered form. The E omega is with the wild orange essential oil, which enhances its impact. And then you get into the PB Restore, which is the microencapsulated. So there's unique deliverability like technologies, if you will, that doTERRA is incorporated just in those 3 products alone. And I think that that's something that is really fascinating. And I know, they, like you're saying, they've created some surprising results, of how rapidly the body has been taking those in. In fact, our groups have just finished some 21-day challenges and people are seeing remarkable changes just in 21 days of daily use, which has really been fantastic. Let's talk for a minute about a couple of other things. You had shared some information at the leadership retreat, I believe it was, to talk about On Guard. And there was something about that with its epigenetic effect. And quite frankly, I don't remember more of the details because I got a little like, wow, wait a minute, start over. So is there something about that you can tell us about? Like what happened with On Guard that made it some unique finding for us.
Yeah, that one we haven't actually done an epigenetic study on yet. It's
Okay,
kind of in our
the list.
schedule lineup. That's definitely one of our legacy products that we really, really want to get some substantiation on. But what we have done, so we've done sort of pilot size studies on this to understand how we want to set up a larger trial. And the one that comes to mind was actually the On Guard form of the little tablets. What are they called?
The chewing ones?
Yeah, the chewable On Guard tablets.
Hmm.
We launched that and we haven't talked much about it since then, which makes me sad because it is fantastic. Okay, so we did a little study where we had some people take the chewable. So, well, we took their blood first to get a baseline. We had them take the chewable, and then a few hours later, we took blood again, I think at 3 hours, and then one more time at 5 hours. Okay, so this isn't days or weeks, this is within hours. And we were seeing that the white blood cells, so the sentry, the little sentry cells that are looking through your blood to make sure that they're catching all the bugs that are trying to attack you, they rose, not to a level that we're like, oh my gosh, that's scary. This is a raise that we would expect. Your body's on alert. It's looking for stuff. And we saw the interleukins, the communication network among cells become more active. Like they were talking to each other and they were telling each other to look out for a threat that was coming. And I remember that ever since then, and when I feel something coming on, that is the first thing I reach for is those little chewable tabs. Because I know that my immune system is going to, now be on alert and fight off whatever it is that I can feel coming on. And this actually happened at convention last year. The very first day, actually the day before the first day on the symposium that was on Tuesday, I was starting to feel it, starting to
Yeah.
feel. I was like, oh no, I cannot be sick for the entire convention. So I pounded those and some electrolytes and, of course, my regular, the you guys didn't know about them yet, but we had the VMG and the Omega and the PBR. And I'll be darned, I woke up the next day and it's like it never happened. It was absolutely incredible. And that is very unusual for me. When I get sick, I get sick. So
Yeah.
so that has gotten us really exciting to now look into the epigenetics of On Guard itself and say, okay, we expect now to see in the genes that the genetic code for encoding these white blood cells and these sentry cells and these connection interleukin molecules to be upregulated. So that's what we're looking at coming up.
That's so interesting about the chewable versus like the On Guard Plus, which has always been one of my big go-tos that I carry around in my purse all the time for the same reason. But knowing that the chewable can have that kind of effect is something to definitely put on the shopping list for this coming month.
Because that one has a really cool synergy. I think I saw someone mention in the chat. It's got a cool synergy with some zinc and I think vitamin C and then beta glucan, which is another natural chemical that goes in and it's like a signal to your body. Hey, you need to wake up and be on alert. It goes through your digestive system, which is different than when you're smelling it or when you're putting on your skin. That is more of a systemic effect when it goes into the digestive system. And the cool thing is, where is the majority of your immune system?
Right, coming into the belly.
It's in your gut. Yeah. So when you're signaling to your gut, hey, wake up, stuff's coming, you need to be on alert, that On Guard chewable. And actually, I think the combination of that plus the oil that has the black pepper and the melissa and the oregano is really a powerhouse because we know that the essential oils have a different pathway than do vitamin C and zinc and the additives that are in the chewable. So I like the idea of giving our body a lot of tools for its tool belt because I truly think our bodies are miraculous and can do what they need to do when we give them the opportunity.
That's a great point. And actually that kind of brings me to another line in doTERRA, which is a powerhouse tool, which is the DDR Prime. And is there any studies that have been done about that with cellular health or even in the past or that are upcoming? Because that, is again, a kind of an unsung hero in the last few years, but I know when it first came out, there was a lot of, Dr. Hill talked to us a lot about it. So anything you can share about that particular product?
Yeah. So interestingly, the only research that we have on that is what we call phase 4 post-market surveillance. And this is a kind of clinical study that happens once a product is launched, and then you sort of send it out and let it go and collect data back from people. So we don't have good research on that one yet. Although again, it's on our list because it is one of my favorites, and I know it is one of Dr. Hill's favorites too. I mean, how non-compliant can it be? I have a really cool story.
Yeah, no, we'd love to hear it. Do your
Okay.
best.
Okay, so yes, this is me now standing in a corner, not being compliant, but it's truly an amazing product that I think is one of the things that really cemented my knowledge and belief about essential oils. So this is back in very early in doTERRA's history. And this was in 2012, I think. So doTERRA had been around for 4 years or so, and it still only had just a handful of essential oils. And my husband started just feeling kind of odd, feeling weird. And we were on a vacation down in Las Vegas, and it got worse and worse and worse very quickly until he couldn't walk anymore. He was paralyzed essentially from his chest down. And it happened so fast. And we were just horrified and stunned. And they finally, after lots of tests, diagnosed him with a very rare form of MS.
Hmm.
That where instead of having lesions in your brain, his lesions were down his spine.
Ugh.
And I was just beside myself. I was about 7 months pregnant at the time.
Oh,
And I called Dr. Hill in a panic. And I said, what do I do? What do I do? And after he calmed me down, he said, you know what to do. Let me remind you. And he said, you want DDR Prime up and down the spine, massaging. Get your husband to take it internally if he will. He wouldn't. But I did massage it faithfully up and down his spine, the soles of his feet, had him inhale it. And so he had been completely numb from the chest down. Within about 2 days, he was starting to feel tingles in his feet again. And within about a couple of weeks, he was walking again.
wow.
We went into his doctor again, and they watched on his MRIs as those lesions started to shrink and heal. And he still has scar tissue there because it was such a bad attack.
Hmm.
But he can walk now. He has no issues with, his bowel and everything like that had been numbed and not working. It's
Wow.
like it was very miraculous to me. And so that was one that has a really special place in my heart.
Hmm.
The DDR Prime, and I really do want to see what is that mixture of essential oil, what is that synergy there, and what's happening on our epigenetics and in our blood marker that's going to show that's one clue about why it works the way that it does. I have no idea how Dr. Hill put that together initially. A lot of intuition, I think, and guidance because it does amazing things. And someday science, I think, will explain at least a little bit of it. That's my goal anyway, when we do the epigenetic study on that blend.
Yeah. It's really, I mean, the anecdotal evidence I can just tell you from teammates over the years is remarkable what that can
Incredible.
do. And there are a number of health practitioners on this call, and they all have client stories and their own experiences that are vast with that particular blend.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have a question about supplements. We have a lot of supplements at doTERRA. And the question on that is, do they ever cancel each other out? Or is it something where, people should maybe stair step in? Or what's your feeling about that? Because it's easy to say, take these 7 things and you kind of go like, whoa, it's too much.
A
So
lot.
what's your feeling about that?
Yeah. So as far as I know, they wouldn't necessarily cancel each other out, but the bigger issue might be there's only so much your liver can process all at once.
Mhm.
I think about it kind of like a grocery store that has all the checkout lanes, right? But not all of them are open at once. And if you get a backup of people, then people start to get mad and they'll fight each other in the grocery store line. What you really want is, all your lanes open, but not too many people in each of those lanes. So they're processing through the way that they should. So I think of that like if we're taking too many supplements, especially if our liver has any other health issues going on with it, we're going to run into problems.
Yeah.
So I love, 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 love the education direction that they're taking right now with the foundational wellness at the center that should be kind of this gateway for pretty much anyone across the population to start out with. And this is where we're going to allow our body to start to overcome maybe some years of neglect, of stress, of nutritional imbalances, and get to a really good place with that core set of the VMG, P Restore, and E Omega, right? And then, you've got a group of very core essential oils that can be used for, your needs, your mental health needs, your physical health needs, your sleeping, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I can't remember off the top of my head what those 14 are, but hopefully they've been educating you guys on them.
Yeah, we've seen them, yeah, for the project of the month.
And then the targeted solutions, which I think is the perfect way to address this. So you're not taking every single supplement across the board that doTERRA makes. You're thinking, okay, what are my health needs and what are my health goals? Kind of in priority of how I want to address these. That way, as I'm having my core do its job, I'm thinking, okay, my biggest issue right now is probably sleep. So I'm going to add on Serenity and just start there and not necessarily take everything else along with it. Once my sleep's in a good place, okay, my next issue might be metabolism. So let me grab some, sorry, my brain just went blank, MetaPower or Mito2 Max or whatever it is that specifically I need to work on to get into a good place, right? Because you may not need Serenity every single night of your life. I mean, it's awesome and it's powerful, but it's also a targeted solution, right? It's something that can help you when you need it, and then you move on to a different targeted solution when you need it. And at different points of your life, you come back because you're stressed out and you need some sleep support and things like this.
Yeah.
That way, I feel like it's a much more sustainable and healthy approach so that you're not overwhelming your system with too many supplements, more than it can use.
Right. Well, it's an interesting thing about, as wellness advocates, when we work with people as customers, teaching them about empowering themselves with knowledge. And that kind of brings me to a couple of things I want to make sure we get in our time today, which is, doTERRA has, through your work over the years, they've published so much research, and some of which we're allowed to share and some of it we're not, or whatever. I mean, the doTERRA version, I think we're allowed to share. But one of the questions, I guess, is how do you suggest that we best use, some of the things you even mentioned about the foundational wellness products? This is like critical information for us to pass along because it's really how people can trust and learn and know about the products. Is there anything in particular you can suggest about the doTERRA research that's published and how we might use it out in the field to be more effective?
Yeah. So a lot of people, to be perfectly honest, a lot of people aren't going to get a lot out of a full scientific paper.
Mhm.
It's dense, it's hard to understand unless you're, a trained scientist or doctor, and that's fine. Knowing that it's there for a lot of people is the confidence that they need. Having the actual paper is going to be the confidence for practitioners and scientists and skeptics. So I love both of those options. For the majority of people, I think the knowledge that it's there, but then using some of the resources in the DMK and on the research page and on source2u.com are really going to be what the majority of people might need. The videos that kind of show the breakdown of how epigenetics works, or, being able to actually type in the number on their bottle and see the GCMS pop up. I think it's going to be a combination kind of the digested forms of the actual research for most people, and then the actual research for those who can understand it and who need it. So it's kind of a matter of feeling out your audience, knowing what they would appreciate most. And our education team, I think, has entered this year with a new energy to take this research and give it out in forms that are useful to more people and in different ways too. They're doing a lot of podcasts. They're doing a lot of social media memes. They're doing, things that hopefully you guys can use so that there's lots of facets that you're able to reach out and present the data in different ways so that lots of people across your audience can get them. I have over here on my desk, this is great. This is one of our white papers, for example. So all of this is 145 pages of data.
The book.
Most people, that would be like their best bedtime story ever because they'd read a paragraph and it would put them right to sleep. But this is now going to be translated into snippets, into posts and webcasts and all kinds of things for you guys to be able to use, and a publication or more. I don't know. We might not be able to fit all that in one publication, but from some stuff that will actually be put on peer-reviewed journals that will bring some prestige and really a lot of validity to what we're trying to get out into the world.
That's great. Well, can you give us any hints about what we can hear at convention? Because we're trying to encourage everybody to get their tickets that open up this month. Anything exciting coming? You can hint?
Yes. So exciting. So, along with the new products, which are always exciting, one of our goals is to really take these amazing products, these core products, these legacy products, and give you additional ways to talk about them and additional things in the research that we're finding that is exciting about them, right? We're finding as we do these studies that not only are, for the most part, the ways that we're talking about them and thinking about them absolutely correct, but then there's like this layer of new stuff that we're finding about how they work and how they work in combination with other things, other doTERRA products. And that's kind of going to be what we're hitting at convention. You're going to see new sides of the same products that you've never seen before. And I think for a lot of people, this is going to be eye-opening because they're going to say, oh my gosh, I've been using this for years. I had no idea that it was doing this. And I hope that it will reinvigorate a lot of people who, they've maybe been with doTERRA for a while and things seem a little ho-hum, but we're going to show you it's like a whole new set of products that we've got, literally
That's
and
exciting.
figuratively.
Yeah, and that's really exciting because I know there was a comment at the leadership retreat that doTERRA was investing something like, did I hear right, $10 million into research?
Yeah, it's an
Wow.
incredible amount. And not all of that is in my budget, but we've got my team that's the clinical research, and we've got pretty good sized budget, not gonna lie. And then we've got the essential oil research, which is Dr. Prabodh Satyal, and he is the one who is looking at GCMSs and adulteration and the purity of our essential oils. And of course, we've got our research and development, and they're looking at how do we deliver these essential oils in new ways. They're looking at the technologies like the VMG, like the microencapsulation, and doing research on how are these now being put into the body and put into different products for people to be able to use. So among those kind of three main types of research at doTERRA, millions and millions of dollars are being spent.
That's huge. Okay, so I'm going to kind of wrap up my questions and then maybe we'll look at the chat real quick. But I just have to say, like, I've listened to you speak for probably 15 years in doTERRA. I've been involved for 17. So I have loved watching all the progression. I remember the very first study that you presented that you were working on in Nevada and in your program there and all the different oils. And that was back in the day when we just talked about what the truth was about every oil. It was great stuff. But anyway, I have to say this, you are someone who, in my mind, has never aged, which I don't understand, but there must be something that you're using from doTERRA that are like your number 1, 2, 3. You gotta be committed to these. What would you tell us, no matter what, guys or ladies, and many of us on the call are women that would love to know your secret. So is there anything that you could suggest?
Okay, well, I'm a really big believer of beauty from the inside out, right? So lifelong vitality, faithfully, VMG too. I actually still kind of use both. I use VMG a lot when I'm traveling because it's so convenient.
Mhm.
And I'll just kind of go back and forth between those two because I love, the greens and the drink of the VMG. But then I also love parts of the LOV. So I don't take them both on the same day. I'll alternate a little bit. But then the rest of the foundational wellness, I have had gut issues for a really long time. And I have to say, doTERRA has been absolutely life-changing for me on that. So as my gut gets into a better place, I feel like it reflects in my skin and, in the health of my body overall. So foundational wellness, I think, is a big one for healthy aging. Um, Frankincense has been one of my sort of secret beauty serums for a really long time. I love it with added into the it used to be called anti-aging skincare set. What is it
Oh,
called
yeah.
now?
Oh, well, it's the essential skincare
That
system.
one.
Like
Yeah.
that, yeah.
I've used that for many years and I love to supercharge it with a little bit of extra frankincense for a little what. And when the stick came out, I've been using that on my neck, gotten rid of some of the, yucky cross lines that I used to have. So frankincense, I would say, let it supercharge whatever skincare
Yeah,
routine you like to do.
yeah.
And
This is
then
a good one.
here's a funny thing that this is fairly recent for me, but I think it has actually made a huge difference. Oh, sorry, going back to the frankincense. I love to put it in the yarrow palm too. The yarrow
Mm,
palm
mm.
oil with a little bit of frankincense. Oh my gosh, it'll change your life. And then I remember at a convention a few years ago, I think it was when we launched Spanish sage or maybe Tulsi. Emily Wright was talking about dry brushing. That is
Mm.
literally the first time I had ever heard about this idea of dry brushing. And not gonna lie, thought it was kind of weird. Thought, what? And so it wasn't just, it probably this past year that I thought, I'm gonna try that. So I started doing dry brushing, adding a drop. And, like she said, the Spanish sage is great for that. The Tulsi is great for that. Frankincense, sometimes I'll throw on there. And I even do it like on my face. I got a really small bristle brush, really, I don't know how you describe it, soft, really soft brush. And I'll do that kind of in circles, buff some stuff out, and then put on my moisturizer with my oil in it. I wake up the next morning and I kid you not, like I have no foundation or powder or anything on my face. And it just feels so good. I can tell that the oils and the dry brushing and what I'm doing on the inside are really making a big difference. So I
Well, you
think,
look wonderful as always. So, thanks. That's a great list. I took good notes for that. So, um, okay. So I just want to take a quick look at the chat as we're winding things up. And Aisha, are we doing okay on time? I know we're running a little bit over
Well,
today.
I think the question is Dr. Stevens, this has been amazing. Can we have you for a few more minutes since we started
yes,
late? Okay.
I came late,
There,
please do.
there is a question from Ashley that I think is a really great one. Can you speak to why so many say essential oils are not safe for internal use, like liver damage? But I know you have found some incredible research on the internal consumption. Is there a limit on how many drops you'd want to consume in a day?
Oh, that's a fantastic question. Honestly, I think the fear around internal consumption is a couple fold. Number one, because in the past and up until doTERRA was around, there was a very legitimate fear of contamination, of impurity. You really had no idea what was in that bottle. So I don't blame people for being nervous about that. And until doTERRA came along, I was nervous about that too. If you have the pure plant extract, that concern goes away. You're now taking something into your body that is exactly what the plant made and something that your body will be used to and know how to process because this is how our ancestors lived, elbow to elbow with the plants. And our bodies are familiar with those constituents. I think another fear is that if people haven't been formally trained in how to use essential oils internally, that they could do themselves damage if they are not taking it correctly or if they're taking too much of it. Um, Again, having some of our um, formats that we can use, soft gels or veggie caps, things like that, and to get it into your digestive system without, burning the tissues that might be sensitive along the way, that fear is improved as well, right? We still have to be careful, of course. Not all essential oils are useful internally, and some, like the really hot ones, we still have to be careful about taking too much. And I try to remind people it doesn't take, 15 drops of something. If you think about it, a single drop of essential oil has enough molecules to give every single one of your cells like some million amount of constituents. I think I did the calculation once because I was curious about it, like taking the number of body cells and then the estimated number of actual molecules in a drop of essential oil. And it's enough to give every single one of our body cells a huge amount. So don't be afraid to just take a drop as opposed to 5 or 10. you will be getting the benefits. So tell people this as you're educating them. These are concentrated plant extracts. So use them wisely and use them sparingly. In terms of how many drops a person should take each day, we've never really been able to pin that down to give like an official recommendation, simply because it depends on the oils. It depends on your age. It depends on your medical state. It depends on a lot of things. So it's hard to pin down exactly. And I think it does also depend too on whether you're doing it topically, aromatically, internally, combination of all three. So I would say just have people be cognizant of how many, especially that they're taking internally. You don't need, more than, I would say, a handful of drops. I don't think I typically take more than about probably 10 drops internally a day. That's me. You can tell if you're running into problems, if you start having, issues with things like heartburn or issues in your digestive tract, or you've gone to the doctor to get your annual blood work and you're seeing, too high of liver enzymes. That's a time when you reevaluate and you say, I could probably get the same benefits taking less oil and then have less side effects too. Does that make sense? That was kind of a long answer. Sorry.
No, that's great. No, it's a lot. You had a lot of information in that. And there are, I think those were some of the main questions. I feel like we covered a lot. I guess I will say before we wind this up, is there anything else you'd like to share with people about what a difference research makes in the doTERRA brand and what we're doing on our end of it, and as consumers? Obviously, we've talked about, the safety and the purity and the data that helps us feel confident in ourselves. But is there anything else you want to share with us about going forward, what we need to think about when we think about clinical research at doTERRA?
Yeah, I would say be excited. We are at the forefront of something that is so exciting, not just to us. I mean, sometimes we kind of get into our doTERRA bubble, which is great because that should be our focus. But every year I get to go to a conference that involves professionals, scientists in the natural product space. And every year we're one of the very few that come and give presentations about essential oils. And people are always, always surprised and excited. So I want you guys to know that this isn't just, a doTERRA specific kind of excitement and revolution. This is something that's making waves in the entire scientific community around the world. I mean, this is really a big deal. So when you're using that essential oil, just know that a lot of love and care has gone into making that the very best oil that we can source, and the very best oil with the best data behind it as we're doing this research. That this is our passion. And I really hope it comes through when you use that bottle, and that you feel that in your family and you feel that in your business, that we are excited to be able to support you.
Well, thank you so much. And I know that there are, as I may have mentioned earlier, there's a number of people on this call that are medical professionals. And I know that there may be a place that they can connect to for updates and information or conversation with doTERRA. Is that through your department, or is that something through another team that has, is feeling like it was some kind of a call or a group?
Yeah. They've just instituted something brand new. And I'm not actually sure of how they're funneling that through, but it's the education team that's taken that
Oh,
on.
that's right.
They have got the best resources. They got their fingers in a lot of places that's bringing it all together. So I don't know. Do you guys know Kate Balser?
Or Jared Auger might have mentioned it.
Kate Balser, Lauren Bush,
Right.
Dr. Riggs. They're on the education team.
Okay.
They're the ones that are kind of bringing together a lot of these scientific findings from all the different branches of doTERRA science and making them accessible in a lot of different ways. So they would be good to reach out to.
Okay, cool. And someone named Linda has asked several questions. And Linda, we're talking about the On Guard chewable tablet. And I don't know if there's some notes from today, but I'm sure if there are that someone has taken, they'll share them with you if you reach out to them. I do my own notes, but anyway, but hopefully you can listen to the recording and take some good notes too. Dr. Stevens, I want to say thank you so much on behalf of all of us across the board here, across the countries, plural, for thanking you for your time today to join us and help us get up to speed on what's been happening in clinical research. And under your guidance. We are just thrilled to have you at doTERRA, and thank you for all your hard work that you do on our behalf. It really matters to all of us. So thank you.
You guys
Yes.
keep up your good work.
I
You're
want to echo that. We are so appreciative. I know you are incredibly busy, so taking the time to be with our group is just so appreciated and valuable, and we're so grateful. And thanks for all of you joining us live and support. It's great when you're here, your energy, your love, your questions. Next Monday, we are going to dive into allergies. We kind of touched on that a little bit before the call. We do a daily habits call, and it will be kind of an open discussion with our doctor panel about how to treat allergies in this spring season. So I hope to see you all next week. Have a wonderful day, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Dr.
everyone.
Stevens.
And
Amazing.
if you want to hear more from Dr. Stevens, make sure you get your convention tickets this month in May, you guys, and come and see her and meet her in person.
Yes,
So
I'll give you a
it'll
hug.
be excellent in Salt Lake City this September. Thanks,
Yay.
everybody. Take
Thank
care.
you so much.
Bye
Bye.
bye.